All righty, well, it's almost 6:30, so I'm just get my head together here.
Your mother broke her shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh,
How long ago was that?
When was that? I want to say February or March.
Oh, dear.
Oh, so a while back.
Yeah.
My wife just told me tonight, did you know Joanne had broken her shoulder? No, I had no idea.
No.
Oh, I know you don't.
Yeah, they worked together or something,
Oh, okay.
something.
Yeah, what happened is her treadmill was broken for 4 months, and I made no less than 10 attempts to fix it. Finally, after lots and lots of drama, got the right belt. Finally got it on. It was such a pain to fix. And the next night, my mom was using it and didn't have the little safety clip on and fell and
Oh, no.
broke her
Wow.
shoulder.
Oh,
It's
sad.
like I should have left the thing broken.
Oh, that's terrible.
But she's doing much better now. She's out of a cast and
Yikes.
yeah, I think she's already in. I think she might have started physical therapy.
Was it a clavicle or?
She got a new one, whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
she got a new one.
Wow.
It's amazing how many new parts we can get now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just would like to get one in the next year somewhere.
No, we used to watch the Bionic Man in the 70s and go,
Yeah.
wow,
Oh,
that'll
that's
never
right.
happen.
That's right.
Here we are.
That's right. That's right. All right, I guess we're all ready. I might as well start this session of the Jericho Selectboard meeting at on June 1st at 6:30 p.m. And as usual, we always start with public to be heard. And if there's anybody that wishes to speak to something that is not on the agenda. Do we see any hands?
I do not see any.
Either be
hands.
Linda or Jason. Or Steve, I
Oh,
guess.
here comes Steve.
I don't. Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything that's for public to be heard that's not on the agenda?
I do.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Just in time.
Just in time. I'll be quick.
Okay. You generally are, actually.
I'm Steve Martano. I live at 274 Silly Hill. Nice to see everybody. I wanted to talk about not the Railroad Circle property in particular, but just in general. So I've been privy to the JCDC meetings and Eric's been doing a great job leading that and want to see that project be successful. I just wanted it on the record. So if we think about how we got to that property, it was from community input on what to do with the ARPA money and hearing affordable housing. Then the select board purchased that property as a good opportunity and saw the potential of that, right? I just would like to say that I want to see the successful completion of that project and will support that in any way that I can. I don't want the town to buy more property until we have a model of success at 2 Railroad Circle. And I've heard rumors of that. I don't know if it's true. We've talked about it here a little bit and I've asked and you've said, we don't know, right? We might not. But I want that project to be successful. And I want it to be a model for the future. And I think that when we go back and if we were to ask people specifically, do you want the town to buy property with the expectation to rehabilitate and sell it? I'm not sure that the appetite would necessarily have been there. So I think when people said affordable housing in a vacuum, that sounded great. But people like myself, I was thinking, okay, 0 interest loans, grants, help with closing costs, things like that, and not the town owning property. And it just makes me uncomfortable to think about the town owning more property when we don't yet have a defined budget plan or success factors for the one that we already own. And I know that we may end up acquiring, as a town, we may end up acquiring the adjacent property, the Workman property, I think it's called, right? And it sounded like, based on what we talked about at JCDC, it sounded like that property legally is very much up in the air. What ownership looks like is very much up in the air. And so I just wanted to express my concern about the town being in the real estate environment and all the transactional costs, the rehabilitation costs, and all of this. So just something to consider. And I've talked with my neighbors and I've talked with other people around town, and people are watching the 2 Railroad Circle property project. And there's some concern that it could be more financially burdensome than we think that it might be. I hope that it's not, and I hope that that's a model for success, and maybe we can go do this again. My only point, just to summarize, is that I don't want the town to be acquiring more property before we have lessons learned from the one that we have already acquired.
Well, to answer some of that, and then obviously Eric can speak more to it, is the town has no interest in being any long-term real estate
Right.
Person.
Right.
That the idea is that you have to take advantage of the funding that we have at the moment and the opportunities that arise at the moment. And then we will build on to the idea of affordable housing there that is taken over by other institutions. That so the town is no longer part of the real estate.
What do you all view as long-term? Is that a year of ownership or 2 years or 5 years?
I don't, it depends. I don't know how to define the long term.
One can imagine the minimum required to ensure that the property was permanently affordable,
Because it has. to be-
whatever that means.
Yeah.
So if it takes a year and a half to flip something,
Mhm.
if it takes 2.5 years to flip, but I think ultimately the metric would be, can it be permanently affordable in one sense or another? But to your other points, and I won't belabor it because this is really, Eric's put in a lot of work. I agree completely that prior to spending more money on things related to affordable housing, and I've said this, we need to have a fuller discussion as a town to see if we want to move forward. That's not exactly what you said, but it's pretty close to what.
Yeah, we're in agreement on that,
So-
right? Yeah.
So I agree with you on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so you've made your point quite a few times, and I appreciate you always do it in a very respectful manner. So I really like that. It's good dialogue. But I do have a question, it's sort of a challenge. So your first ideas, I'm not sure I captured all of them of, you agreed with the fact we need some sort of affordable housing. Your vision was helping with closing costs, and I forget some of the quotes that you had. So my question is, on what? So let's say we use that money to do those things, on what?
So, well, I think that you could have. You're putting me on the spot here. I haven't fully thought about this. But,
No. I mean, they're good suggestions.
Yeah,
But the point is, we have, the reason that we did this is we have no inventory in this town of.
Right.
Zero, actually.
Right, I mean, there's, let alone affordable, there's no inventory at all right now, I don't think.
Yeah. I hear you. I just don't know that, okay, if we make an inventory of let's be really aggressive. Let's call it 8 units. Inventory of 8 units. I mean, it's fine.
It's a drop.
Right?
It's a drop.
Yeah, that's fine. And I get concerned that because if you do something like a 0 interest loan, or you do something, and Catherine, you and I talked about this last time in this public forum, right? You said, well, there are other avenues that you could do down payment matches, but you can match a down payment match, right? So if somebody has $10,000 in cash and the state matches their $10,000 down payment, now it's $20,000, and the town matches $10,000, now you're at $30,000 on a 0 interest loan. Okay, that's 10% of a $300,000 house. Right. And if they have 15,000, that's 45%. That's 10% of a $450,000 house, which is the median for Jericho. So there are ways that we can maybe leverage what's already being done in a way that we can budget it. Because my biggest concern about the railroad property project is that we don't have a defined budget. And we will at some point, right? But in the meantime, it's all just money going out and we don't really know when it will stop.
Yeah, and I guess one other point that I'd like to make is, again, this ARPA money is transformational money. It's once in a lifetime. We will never see anything like that in our lifetime if we live in Jericho for the rest of our life. We won't see that again. So I just want to point out, probably anything major we do with that money is going to have some supporters and some detractors from it.
I agree, but I mean, going back to the 8 units, right? So only 25% of households in Vermont have children under the age of 18. So of those 8 units, if you're using those metrics, 6 of those units will have probably just a couple or one person. So we have this transformational money, which if you plot it out on what this looks like based on the demographics and who's likely to buy those properties is probably seniors or other, other people that are maybe downsizing. You're talking about that transformational money that's impacting 25 to 30 people in a 6,000 person town with a $3 million budget. So it's possible that the town invests $700,000 in this. That's the net cost of the project, right?
And then gets back what?
You've impacted,
400,000.
yeah, right? So you're in for, $400,000, right? And you've had a very positive impact on those specific 24 people, but there's 5,976 that, they're like, okay, but
But it impacts more than that, because there's the ripple effect, because you're talking about, if we say, well, it's just for seniors. Then, but the seniors are want to stay in Jericho, are living in larger homes, so that those homes turn over now to younger families. So you're impacting that level, and that those younger families are moving from, from either the rental property somewhere else or into a town, so that's adding more people in, as well as younger families. But
if you're testing from Jericho though, because you can't guarantee that the people who are going to buy those properties are necessarily.
no, we're not going to say
Right.
whether they're from here, but the key is that all the studies.
But they could be.
Yeah, they could
The
be.
There could be
studies-
someone
Yeah,
that's
could
in
be.
Jericho living
The
in a,
studies have found
Yeah.
from the state that people, the seniors, the problem is that seniors would like to downsize and they can't, but they want to stay in their own community. And,
Yes.
there's nothing here.
Well, the additional kids in the 8 units, scanty as they may be, 4 kids, maybe you get 3 or 4 kids out of 8 units. I don't know. That does incrementally affect the school block grant. I don't know by how much, but a little bit. It just,
I mean,
but
that's,
I
yeah.
understand what your point is.
But
Yeah.
The downside to having a revolving loan, you're taking your ARPA money, is technically the money has to be actually spent by their deadline of 2026, and whether a revolving loan fund actually counts as, for ARPA spending is not sure yet.
Well, you could put it toward another line item. I mean, we could get creative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, there's
it
no.
doesn't feel very transformational, right?
Yeah.
Like we could, I don't know, we could go take our second worst road and go fix that one that maybe we wouldn't have got to this yet. Probably not allowed on the rules, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, cool, hey, look what we did with this. And Wayne's got some good things here that are different from affordable housing that I think are, resonate as transformational, but I think this money needs to be spent on something big. And so you're right. Let's say it's 8 units, probably won't even be 8 units, but let's say it is.
Yeah.
Does that change a ton? Well, it might be the only 8 affordable houses that go in the next 10 years if we can't figure out a way to change it in other ways through our zoning regulations and through our other stuff. So
And the key is they're going to be perpetually affordable.
perpetually affordable with whatever they're called.
A Champlain Housing Trust, or either
Thank you.
have a
Yeah.
Jeff entity or some
Yeah,
other.
they'll be
Some other
eligibility
institution
required.
that
Sure.
does that, like
Yeah.
Evernorth or things like that. I mean, but so
Sure.
they'll be the ones dealing with the property.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah, I guess I like when the town does the surveys. I like when you get input from people and you solicit it and most people don't respond, right? We all know how that works. I just want to be thoughtful. Are we asking the right questions to get the answers that we're looking for? Because everybody in vacuum is like, yeah, I love this idea of X, but what does that actually mean? What is the policy behind it? What is the budgeting? What is the, and you all have an idea of what that is, but I don't think that it may or may not line up with what people's expectations and desires are. So that's my last.
Jason's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. This sort of overlaps with the ARPA conversation where I was going to make comments, but I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, this money has,
What's your last name, Ed, for the record, please?
yeah, it's right on my Zoom account, Garbarino, GARBARINO.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see, so.
Oh, that's okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, sure. So there's a number of things that ARPA funds can be used on. And from my perspective, I think you're really looking at a trickle down effect. If you're looking at 8 unit properties for the town of Jericho, this can be spent on things like broadband, things like sewer access, pay for essential workers during the pandemic, supporting small businesses that were vastly impacted by the pandemic. So I think saying that the money had to be used, is something that could be debated. The other component of this, I agree with what Steve said of using this as an example for future affordable housing projects and not having any additional ones until this one's completed. Well, even before that, I think that there should be a formal process in place This was acted on quickly by the town. I've heard the justification as to why, but there's no formal process written. This is something that's been talked about at the JCDC. I think it has to include what's, in place when thinking of purchasing a property and all the components in terms of the parameters when a property is purchased.
SJ?
Hi, everybody. I was watching you all while having dinner tonight with the family and thought I would hop on. So
While you were
I
eating?
apologize. I didn't hear everything that was said, but a couple of points that I wanted to make. One was that the town already owns property and has owned property for many years with various intentions for said property, or are just keeping that property, not quite in a technical land bank, but have been holding on to it for potential projects that haven't been decided on, maybe haven't been talked about. The JCDC was formed many years ago with this particular idea in mind of acquiring properties, but also maybe investing in other opportunities for economic development. So the idea of purchasing Railroad Circle and owning property is not new for the town. What is new is the idea of trying to do some kind of affordable housing development or some kind of housing development. And I think that that's important because it's not just those, I think someone threw around the number 8, and I just want to make sure for people who are listening that we're not actually talking about 8. That's a hypothetical number and probably a larger number than the number that we'd be using. But it's not just those 8 families that are impacted that get to come and live in Jericho. It's, first of all, it broadens the number of folks who are participating in our school district and attending our businesses and X, Y, and Z. It's making sure that our growth and our demographics aren't stagnant, but it's also creating an example, I think, as you mentioned earlier, of the kinds of projects that Jericho wants to see happen. It's a signal to other developers, other people who are interested in doing these kinds of projects, that Jericho is a place where those kinds of projects can happen. The other thing about investing in Railroad Circle is it's almost like a place to park the money, right? Because we did purchase that land and sink that money into the land, but we're not going to hold it forever. We're not going to be owners of that land in perpetuity. And so we'll be able to, because it's a municipality, access other funding to offset a lot of the costs that your typical private developers face in building homes, to try and create more affordable options and more housing choice. But then we get that money back in addition to the new families that we're welcoming in, the signaling that we're giving to other developers, the exercise that we as a town are getting in doing large projects, in navigating the zoning regs and thinking through all of these different things. There's kind of a bigger picture process that it's not just we build these houses and then we're done and we've lost that money. It's we had this money, we've invested this money, we will be getting that money back. And in addition to that, we will be getting the potential for lots of other projects, lots of exercise in doing bigger projects, which we as a town need to start practicing how to do if we're gonna stay viable as a town and not stagnate. And that includes infrastructure projects and recreation projects and things like this. So there's a lot more to it than just these 8 individual homes. And again, the town already owns properties and will probably continue to do that. That's typical of municipalities. The last thing I will say is just that I'm really excited about the level of engagement and commitment and participation that people in the Railroad Circle community have had around this project. And I'm hoping that that's something that we can really utilize to help jumpstart a broader dialogue within the community to talk about these kinds of projects on a much larger scale, not just at Railroad Circle, but in other places, whether that's allowing multifamily housing in other areas, or as we talk about infrastructure and wastewater feasibility and stuff, that this will kind of help facilitate and jumpstart a dialogue between public and you all, select board, and those of us who are volunteering to try and help support these kind of endeavors.
Thanks, SJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Great. That was terrific. Thank you, SJ. I agree with you, and all that I'm asking is that we get that proven model, right? But I think that we already have lessons learned from the acquisition to date. I don't know if they're being codified anywhere, or we have like back of the envelope kind of playbook of, gosh, we acquired it in this way. Maybe if we did it again, we'd do it in this way, or we thought about this, or we should do it that way. I'm sure that there are lessons learned already. And Eric, you're knee deep in it. So I'm sure you have a pile of them up here if you haven't written them down, but maybe we start to put together a playbook so that we know what worked the first time and what didn't, and we adjust from there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Are there any comments, other public to be heard that on items that are not on the agenda? If
Not
not,
seeing any hands.
if not, we're going to talk about infrastructure. Review and
Thank you.
review and consider approval of the state wastewater revolving fund agreement.
Great, so we discussed this a bit at our last meeting, and I had not put it on as an agenda item. And Catherine's thought was that given the even though it's not a standard loan and there's no required payback if we meet the conditions as stated, that it would be valuable to have some on the record discussion. So I asked Linda to come and join us. Linda and I have been working on the wastewater feasibility. I was thinking viability, feasibility. Thank you. It's been a long, warm day, and we actually had some questions ourselves about some of the stipulations of the agreement, and Linda suggested that we try to gain clarification, and we reached out to the loan bank today to talk to the director, and Linda can share with you what we found.
Yeah, I'll come up so that
Yeah, come on up.
I'm near the mic here. It's, sort of a boilerplate contract. And the money that is in this contract is just for the planning phase. So just the feasibility study, which should be done by the end of the summer. And so there were some of the boilerplate language seemed to imply that there would be a payback needed, but we clarified today that they definitely confirmed that there is no repayment of this loan. They structure it as a loan and use the same forms that they use for other bonds and loans. So that's why it was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, because when we had the very first presentation from Dan, was it Dan Brown or something like that?
Tom Brown, probably.
Dan Brown, yeah,
Yep.
from the Clean Water Revolving Fund. He gave a great presentation and talked about this, is that they can't give grants. So what they do is give loans that are
Forgivable.
once you get going. And so we couldn't believe that one night we said, oh yeah, okay, we just signed up for $125,000. And
Yeah.
Well, thank you for explaining that, because when I looked this over before, I was like, so how much do we have to pay every month?
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't find a thing.
Up in the packet, you're like,
At the very end. But
Yeah.
so, but because that started way back when Catherine was still here, and it's taken a while, but it's exciting that it's finally happening now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
that's-
are considered as having a loan during the 5-year period, and then the loan is closed out.
My understanding is that the loan will be closed out once we complete the planning work, which will be during the course of this calendar year. And we'll be submitting. So the way that it works is that there are benchmarks that the engineer that we've hired to do the work will hit, and they'll invoice us once they hit those benchmarks. And then we will submit for reimbursement to the loan bank for that money.
Great.
So we will have drawn down all of those funds by the time we finish the feasibility study later this summer.
Well, that's very exciting.
Oh, that's really quick.
I mean,
Great.
because it's taken a long time, but the process is always due to reach this point, but now people can start to see that things are going to happen. I mean, we have
Yeah.
feasibility study that lets us see how we can actually do something. And where we can do it, in phases or whatnot.
Yeah, so even though we're just getting this loan document right now, the work has already been happening.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I did also confirm that that was okay, that like it was okay that we had been incurring costs and doing the work before these documents were executed, and they said, yes, absolutely, this is our process. So it's a little bit different than when you do get a grant, because typically with a grant, you shouldn't be doing any work until you've got your loan documents executed. But the way they run their program, they said, nope, it's fine that you guys have already started. This is our process, so.
Great, great.
So I make a motion that we approve the agreement with the Vermont Bond Bank in regards to the state wastewater revolving fund.
I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Give that all three of us back again.
Yeah. Oh, it's very exciting that
That
everybody's
forest.
healthy.
Yeah.
That everybody's healthy. That's terrific. I mean, it's just very exciting.
So I have the contract here for signing, and what I'll do is it requires attestation from the town clerk.
Mhm.
So I'll wait until Jessica's here
Mhm.
so that you all individually can sign in her presence.
Great.
Sound good?
Yeah, because there was multiple places to sign.
There
There's
is.
different
Yeah, if you
people.
want to give it
Yeah.
a look.
Each person signs, or is this just a captain?
No, each person will
There's
sign.
signs for all kinds of people, but
And-
we have to wait for
and-
Jessica so she could see that you did it.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
Paul has done a wonderful job. You can see exactly where there's treasurer has to sign. There's
I color coded those.
oh, did you?
Yes,
Nicely done. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yes.
Need to give credit where credit's due.
There were a lot of signature lines on there.
It looks
For a
organized.
signature
All
lines.
of Paula's standard MO.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So,
Cool. Okay.
well, that's very exciting so that we can.
Are you staying for MMU segment 4?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, okay, good.
yes,
Good, good.
yes.
All right, now we're moving on to review and consider approval of the natural resources overlay contract. Which also, includes conservation and planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's important to point out for the record that the funding for this work had been approved as part of the annual budget. So it's sort of a misnomer. I guess the approval is to enter the contract and not necessarily approve the amount of the contract. And because the amount, this is not required to be signed by the select board, but because it exceeds the limit and authority that I have as town administrator, it made sense for the select board to go on the record acknowledging the cost for service, which is $16,500 to Arrowwood Environmental. And again, this is work that I believe has already begun as well.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Is there anybody from conservation there?
Sabina.
Sabina.
Oh, yeah, Sabina is out there.
Sabina could say something about it if she likes. So that
Sabina, do you have any
that way people understand
commentary or contribution around the natural resource overlay re-inventory?
Do you have any specific questions or?
Well, I think people might want to know what the intent is. We understand it's the update, but just, talk a little bit about what you intend to
Yeah.
do in the contract.
Maybe for folks who
Yeah.
who are watching or will go back to the meeting who don't may
Yeah.
not even be aware there is a natural resource overlay and what the how that overlay is important from a planning and zoning perspective.
Sure. Well, the overlay district uses data that was collected over the last, 10 or 15 years to identify significant natural resources within the town. And so we have those mapped, and those have been utilized since about 2018 to help us with planning decisions and zoning regulations when it comes to protecting those resources when development is happening. So that's the intent of the tool, is to basically say, we need to know what is out there and what needs to be protected. And then we can, when development is proposed, we can then come at it with an intelligent dialogue and help developers work within the need to protect some of those really important areas in our town, or not even just areas, but resources, natural resources. So the structure of the overlay is designed so that when the town plan is up for review, then the overlay will also be sort of reevaluated. And so that's why we're doing that at this time, because it's in conjunction with the town plan update. What we are asking Arrowwood to do specifically, and this came from several meetings that the Conservation Commission had with Jens Hilke from Vermont Fish and Wildlife. We started talking with him so in January of 2022, we began this process, and we sat down with him and basically asked him what direction we should take as we updated this NRO. And his advice to us was to really work within the new framework of Act 171, the forest habitat block. And so what Arrowwood will be doing for us is helping us define the forest habitat blocks within the town of Jericho, so that we can apply that to Act 171 and basically strengthen the integrity of those forest blocks and make sure that those are identified and protected where necessary. Is that
That's
your question?
very well put. I think it's very well put. And it also, without saying as much, you really emphasize that this is one of the most important environmental and ecological tools we have as the town of Jericho. So that's not to say it's a heavy club. It's just really important. So thank you for explaining it in that way. And I also wanted to just point out, and you mentioned, or you confirmed, that in fact, the Planning Commission hopes that the start date, if you will, when this information becomes official, would run concurrent with the town plan, so that in the future, we wouldn't be in the middle of a town plan and then announcing that, well, we've got a slightly different definition now of our overlay district, that somehow those dates were going to try to be synchronized a little bit. And I just really think that's a brilliant way to do it if we can pull that off. So thanks, Sabina. That was great.
It was very, very concise and covered it. And and Act 71 is a very important act right now, covering a lot of things in terms of soils and forests and things like that. So,
Sabina, I was just gonna ask quickly for people who, in addition to forest blocks, some other examples would be, I'm trying to remember, deer yards, vernal pools, riparian zones. Are there any other specific examples of kind of categorical resources that fall under the NRO?
I think you hit most of them. So yeah, and again, these things are already in the NRO. So this, for anyone who's new to this topic and listening in for the first time, this is not stuff that will be all of a sudden determined this year. This is all very well-established data. So yeah, vernal pools, which are critical habitat for amphibians, riparian zone. So riparian means anything next to a stream or a river. And so though we know that those are really, really critical as kind of stepping stones between the habitat blocks, between the forest blocks. A lot of animals use streams and rivers to get from point A to point B safely. So those are in the NRO. Wildlife crossings is another thing that we are internally working on in the Conservation Commission to update those and make them a little more precise. I'm trying to think if there are others. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I just thought it might be helpful for people to have an idea of what a couple of those might look like. And those were the ones that came to the top of my mind. Thanks for that.
You're
So we need
welcome.
Yep. That way it's all official.
I'll make a motion to approve the Natural Resources Overlay contract. Where did the number go?
16.
$16,500.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second, I'm sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Excellent. Now something that's been in the works for a very long time. Review and consider options of completion of the MMU path segment 4.
It's a generational project.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was Seth and I who did the initial discussions
Oh
with
my gosh.
way back when. With
Wow.
MMU and what, and the first iteration of this project.
So just as background, I do think the scoping study for this whole path was completed in 2011. So that's when it was completed. So it probably started in 2010 or earlier. So it's been a long time in the making. And just to, bring everyone up to speed, we're talking about creating a path from Jericho Center all the way to the MMU High School. And in the scoping study, the path was broken down into 4 different segments. And 3 of the 4 segments have been constructed. So that's the sidewalk and bike path that you'll see on Brown's Trace that goes between Ethan Allen Road and Jericho Center. And so the remaining segment is the last one to get the path all the way to the high school. So it starts at the intersection of Ethan Allen Road, goes over the Lee River, and up to the high school property. And in 2020, the previous town administrator did submit a grant application to the V-Trans Bike Ped program to complete this last segment, which was not approved. And I did reach out and get some feedback from the V-Trans staff on ways that we could improve the application, got feedback from the selection committee on, some of the areas that they thought could be a little more clarified or a little more information. So I was able to start working on understanding how we could improve the application. And at the time that the 2020 application was submitted, the estimate for the project was around $750,000.
And they've been hanging around for a long time. I remember thinking around 750.
Yeah, so as we all know, it's a very different world today with inflation and costs going up. So I met with Tyler, our town engineer, last Friday, and we walked the site and kind of talked through some different potential scenarios just to get a ballpark of costs. And, there's a few different approaches we could take if we do want to pursue a grant application. And the estimates, these are I was trying to be very conservative so we'd know kind of what we're getting ourselves into. It could range from around 1 million up to as much as 1.7 million, depending on some of the design decisions that are made. So really what the ask is tonight is whether or not the town would support and approve moving forward with a grant application to try to get funding for one of these options or some option to complete that last segment.
Yeah, I guess we need to know how the high school feels about, their right away, because that was an issue.
So we actually had, I took the liberty of reaching out to John Alberghini and Mike Weston, because we fully expected that might be a question that you would have around permission and easement access. All of the property, I believe, on that side of the river coming from the intersection is owned by the school district and
Yep.
the high school.
Yeah, so they would be the
And-
only landowner that we would need to be.
They own right up to the Leave River
Right up to the
extension or
river
whatever it's called.
itself, right? And Mike Weston was great, and we felt badly, but knowing that we were gonna be meeting with you all in a couple days, it was like, could you give us an email or a call? And Mike reached out yesterday afternoon and yeah, said he's categorically in support of moving ahead with whatever we can do to connect. He was he acknowledged some of the things that will certainly come out if we are provided the grant that have been sort of sticky wickets. So how far the path were to travel from the bridge, what the surface would be, what some of the potential difficulties would be tying that path into a very busy parking lot without, again, another sidewalk or multimodal access point immediately across from the terminus. And he's 100% in favor of it. Point at which we, if we're given the grant funding and we need to circle back for an easement and legalities surrounding, at that point, he would want to have the school board involved. They would have to sign off on it. But he had conversation with actually John Alberghini earlier in the day, and speaking on behalf of both of them, endorses our moving forward with this.
Yeah, a couple other bits of important information too. Those cost estimates I gave would be the total project, and I can speak to the grants are 80%, would cover 80% of the cost, so the town responsibility would be 20%. And so the town match would vary from a conservative low of $220,000 up to potentially $360,000. And keep in mind that if this grant were to be awarded, these projects typically take 2 to 4 years before you actually get to construction. So that would give us a few years of budgeting to kind of figure out, to set aside, the obligation for the local match.
So is there an obligation for us to even participate in the grant? Like they'll pay for 80% of the planning cost, but we've got to pay for 20 or no?
Say
No.
that again.
This is for a grant.
Yep.
To check out some additional options for segment 4. It doesn't
What's the check?
require any local funds.
The grant would be to engineer and construct
Yes,
one of the options. And yes, the match would be the 20%.
right. Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought.
So it's the whole, because they changed the process for where you would do, just a scoping study and some engineering and then actually construction. It's now engineering and construction.
Yes, lumped together into
Yeah.
one.
Okay,
project.
at the risk
Yeah.
of throwing too many flies in some ointment, is the intersection itself of any interest during the scoping study and the sort of seeming misalignment with that? That does the little Cape house there and the fact that there's all this traffic going into the firing range, does that come in at all to any of this scope of this segment or no?
Well, if this path were to be constructed per the route on the scoping study, it wouldn't really have an impact on the intersection necessarily. And I did review a engineering study that was done a while ago for some recommendations about that intersection and
Right.
reconfiguring it. And none of the options that were recommended would be impacted by the construction of this path.
Well, thank you for being so thorough about
Yeah.
that, because I know which alternatives you're talking about, so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, the downside is there's been now 2 opportunities to try to use the wrought iron bridge that came from the old mill.
No.
But neither one-
Catherine, you had to bring up that darn bridge again.
I can't use it. It
So-
just sits there and grows plants.
okay, so I did ask Tyler if we could use that bridge there. And he said it's not long enough.
Yeah.
Really?
It's on our,
Yes.
it's on everyone's radar.
Yes, I did ask that question.
I know, it's kind of sad. There's a bridge growing. to my
We have to
trees.
find a right size location.
I know,
Where is the bridge? Is that?
That's the dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, big town garage.
Yes, I got excited because I thought this would be a good opportunity to use it, but he said it wasn't.
Enough, it just seemed like it should have been.
Yeah, he measured it. He said the bridge at the garage is around 60 feet and the span we're looking at would be more like 90 feet. So, but I will say, I also have a person at regional planning who is exploring the possibility of repurposing a V-Trans structure because they also have.
They have an inventory. In fact,
They have
they had
inventory.
originally recommended that the footbridge be replaced by one of these
Oh,
inventories
interesting.
of old funky old bridges they have.
Yeah, so they are looking into that for us and seeing whether or not there's a bridge that V-Trans has that could be rehabbed because they want to reuse their bridges that are still usable
That'd be great.
where they can.
We
But it's-
definitely,
Quite a few sidewalks, but
Yeah.
use those smaller bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a
so
great idea.
so we're exploring all of the options to keep the costs as low as possible. I just wanted to kind of tell you guys what we could be looking at potentially if we were to want to pursue this grant opportunity and have to do a whole new bridge and kind of be conservative with the cost estimate too.
I think it makes sense. I mean, because one of the reasons the whole project started was, in a sense of public safety for the students that were, running the track team and how much they run. And of course, they've got that tiny little, very busy bridge to cross. So giving them a pedestrian pathway is a good thing for public safety.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, it makes me nervous seeing the sports teams running.
we want to try to find a bridge at a tag sale price that'll have full retail impact.
That's right.
That's the goal.
Maybe we can get that covered bridge up in Westford.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good. You could even, if you did the right plantings and stuff, you can have those, like they have down in Virginia, those beautiful pots instead of with the bridges over the
Yeah.
waterfalls and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they have that at
You
Shelburne,
know,
Mass,
yeah.
Massachusetts.
Wayne, maybe we could move that covered bridge to
Yeah,
the park.
I like that idea.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the
Grant application.
grant request
Yes.
to go and take a look at MMU Path Segment 4.
I'll second that with the caveat that this is not a vote to go ahead with a big project yet. This is just a vote
This
for
is
the
just,
study.
this is approval to apply for the grant.
Great.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Second,
Yes,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that's
That's
terrific.
fine.
Thank you so much for the extra work.
okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Linda.
I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, it could be very exciting.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
I got 2 weeks to submit. Woohoo.
2 weeks. I think I have
that,
8 days.
that state, that offer about the state bridges is very intriguing though,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
that creates like a thing down there, which is good.
Yes.
Some little subtly ornate bridge that they have left over from somewhere would be just,
I like Eric's idea. We
Yeah.
can do some bartering perhaps too. If they're gonna have to deliver one bridge, they're gonna have that empty truck to send back.
That's
We
right.
have another one that could fit.
if we can get paid by the pound,
Yeah.
we've got it made with that bridge.
That's right. Oh, my goodness.
Uh,
That bridge.
I told you that story, though. We went to look at the bridge. And nobody had a tape or something apparent, and they said, how long do you think that bridge is? I said, that bridge is about 60 feet long. People are like, what's? It was measured almost exactly that. And I said, I grew up in a plot of land, 65 by 100. Burned indelibly into my brain. I can look at something and say, that's 100 feet, because that's how long deep my yard was. Isn't that weird?
That's very weird.
Because everybody's house, and there were like 200 of them, everybody had a 65 by 100 spot.
Yeah.
So you really knew what that piece of property was.
That's actually a handy skill to have. I used to be able to deal with lumber. I sold lumber for my uncle, and so I'd be, nah, it's only a 14-footer.
Sure.
That's terrific. Next on the agenda is review and consider approval of the town of Jericho's portion of the joint ARPA appropriations for the Underhill. Several organizations had approached both Underhill and Jericho requesting ARPA funding that are joint issue items that we often work together on. And so at the end of May, Underhill approved their portion of the asks. And what they're now, what's now asked of Jericho is a parking and road improvements of the Jericho Underhill Park District. The total funding request is $43,000. Underhill is a 38% copay, and essentially, and Jericho has 62% for $26,660. The library district is asked, the Deborah Rawson has asked for a new HVAC system, and the total funding of that was $117,225. Underhill's portion was $44,546, making Jericho's portion $72,680. The fire department has asked, had 3 different asks of life safety equipment, a new repeater because that is failing, and 3 new digital radios because the changes in the complexity of the radios. The life safety equipment is $43,471. Repeaters $11,655. 3 digital radios $11,910, and that comes out to be a total of what do I think? Total everything. I think I had. Oh well.
40 something.
Yeah, it was it came out to $67,036 for all 3 of them. And
Oh, I was just doing our share. Oh, okay, right.
yeah, our
Our
share
share
is
is
$41,562.
It is.
That
I
was-
just checked.
And then the fun item on the park district is good because everybody likes to use the Mills Riverside Park. But the fun asked in the middle of all this is at the Brownsville Middle School is a 9-hole disc golf course for a cost of $7,375, and our portion is $4,573. Pretty exciting. And then the importance of the Essex Jericho Underhill ecumenical food shelf. They have, because the number of families that are utilizing it are in the hole for this fiscal, for their calendar year. They don't have a fiscal year, they have a calendar year. They need $11,500. Essex is not going to participate, but Underhill and Jericho are each going to pay $3,795.
Is this Aunt Dot's place or this is something?
This is the one down at the Good Shepherd.
Okay, all right.
It's right here in
Yep.
Jericho, and it's the 3rd Saturday of the month.
Because I think Jericho has a little something to do with Aunt Dot's. I thought I read somewhere, but this is the primary one.
Yeah, that's it,
Okay.
because I think Aunt Dot's is actually in Essex.
Yes,
One. And that may be why they're funding it rather than this one, even though the Essex, because Aunt Dot's is newer, and so it may be that's the key, because it started here with all 3 of them. But anyway, it makes Jericho's portion $269 of using ARPA funding for these things. So there we go. And
my only comment about these things is I was at the Hannaford's parking lot the other day and I saw somebody who's affiliated with the Underhill Highway Department and wondered in regards to the parking lot improvements, if rather than, I'm just going to say it, throw it out there, and then I've done what I've said I would do. If rather than contracting with somebody for the improvements, both the Underhill and the Jericho Highway Department each brought over 15 loads of gravel wherever they got it and essentially just didn't contract it out. So I'm just mentioning that if you talk to Livy, I don't know if Brad's talked to you about it, but
well, Underhill approved this itself already, so.
yeah, and I don't know what if his finger is in any of that. I'm just mentioning it in case.
I think the
Brad probably would have said something to you by now, I
Yeah.
suspect,
Yeah.
John.
But I think that the key is that it's very soggy, and they wanted to, they wanted to pave, make it easier to maintain things, the road and stuff.
But this doesn't include paving. I thought it was paving.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
And then this person happened to say, no, they're not paving, they're just leveling the parking lot. So in
Oh,
any
yeah.
amount, our dollar figure is set.
Our dollar figure said
You're right.
Underhill's already approved.
That's the important part.
Yeah, Underhill has approved $16,340 to go to the park district for however they're gonna fix the highway. Their parking area.
Sure.
And actually, Brad even sent in his full PDF. They had the application and what that was in there, but I don't have it with me. I didn't print out 25 pages of stuff.
Yeah.
But this is the final word, shall we say?
I was kind of hoping it was gonna be paved too. That's what was my understanding of the ask.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're in sports season, so we're using it quite a bit, so I certainly can understand the need. Madam Chair, would you like a motion for each of these individually? Or would you like one motion for the whole thing? Is there, I mean, I don't see any discussion out there.
Yeah, if nobody has any comments. I think given, I think it makes it cleaner if we go ahead and do it individually.
Line by line. I was afraid you'd say that. All right.
But the Jericho Fire Department, we can put all together. I'd rather,
Want to do it, Wayne, or do you want me to do it?
I make a motion, we approve $26,660 to the Jericho Underhill Park District from ARPA funds for parking and road improvements.
I second that motion.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the Jericho Underhill Library District new HVAC system, of which our portion is $72,680 of our ARPA funds.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I make a motion that we approve, I'm not gonna add, that we approve $26,952 for the Underhill Jericho Fire Department life safety equipment, as well as $7,226 for a repeater for use by the Underhill Jericho Fire Department, and for $7,384 for use by the Underhill Jericho Fire Department for 3 digital radios.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion that we approve a 9-hole disc golf course at Browns River Middle School. Our portion of that out of the ARPA funds is $4,573.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I make a motion that we approve $3,795 for the Essex Jericho Underhill Ecumenical Food Shelf for their use from ARPA funds.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All motions passed. That's pretty darn exciting.
That is exciting.
That really is.
And I don't know if you want to say anything more about any ARPA funding.
I'll just say here, I don't know if you guys, you guys did get this. I put together a sort of a draft of where I thought we were with some things. Maybe it'll prompt a comment or two by other select board members, maybe clarify a little bit. We have already paid $37,393 for improved cybersecurity. As we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, we've spent to date of this draft in mid-April, $376,511 on Railroad Circle affordable housing. There is some discussion about further purchases of things to advance affordable housing, but no action's been taken. The highway garage, we talked very briefly that we've got to replace this furnace. Frankly, I just like to take this opportunity to think this is almost job one. We only have 4 months left till heating season.
Yeah.
And we are just well beyond the 8 ball. So we may have to make some tough decisions and not get the ideal system we want because they need heat. Our crew needs heat.
Yeah.
And then there was some general discussion. I don't know if it's going to pan out about maybe we should insulate the highway garage building to make it a little more efficient. The jury's still out on that. Paula and I have been in contact a little bit about that. I saw that we agreed to purchase 4 speed signs, and I don't think that's to be confused with the 3 solar signs on the agenda.
No,
Okay.
they're different. These are the ones
I was
that.
confused about that too, because I thought we had approved that.
Right.
Okay.
What happened was, these are the 4 that you move around and have but they decided that there was a grant opportunity for the 3 in Jericho Center, because those are permanent and solar. The grant failed,
Right,
Um,
so now they're back.
okay.
yes, they're back.
Okay, so we did agree to purchase these 4 speed signs. They are portable or semi-portable, and we've still got to decide where they're going to be deployed. I think that was about 24,000. And then we just talked about fire department materials. There's been sort of general conceptual discussion that perhaps the town of Jericho Library may need some additional, the building may need some additional funds. So we have yet to discuss that. As we just voted on money for the Deborah Rawson Memorial Library, as well as Mills Riverside, we just agreed on. There is, I just want to call your attention to this private water system. If you remember at Town Hall, there was a specific request that we get together and maybe hear out people who have issues. I happen to see that even though we're not constrained by all the eligibility requirements, in fact, ARPA was written to support whatever this means, some kind of private wells. My notion, and it's half-baked, is that, okay, we put a little bit of money aside if there are homeowners that need to get an engineer to do something in preparation for a loan application. I don't think the town of Jericho should be getting involved in doing these loans when it already exists. But if some engineer's got to come by for somebody and the whole neighborhood's out $5,000, well, you know, maybe that kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
This is just my
it's
half-baked idea.
typically a lot of those for private systems like that were for the economically disadvantaged communities.
Right. Well, I just happen to notice that it
Yeah.
is supported by these other.
Yeah,
ability.
exactly. Yeah.
And then the food shelf we just voted on. And then lastly, and you see the balance, the money we've spent to date is inaccurate because these figures we just voted yes on, the ARPA funds negate this, but about $750,000 spent so far. So we have quite a bit more to go. And that's sort of, I didn't hear anybody say no, yes, or anything, but that's sort of my sense of where we kind of are. And at the bottom, I put with the balance of funds, the select board still has the option to consider some kind of expenditure for wastewater or infrastructure with the remaining funds. So that's
But
where
also
I
take
am.
advantage of all the state money.
Yes, oh, absolutely. So that's where I am, or that's where I think we are.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody said anything different than that. How we proceed, John you had a thought about how we might proceed with figuring out
Yeah,
use of the ARPA funds.
so I think we maybe we can put it on the agenda for our next meeting, but some thoughts would be to try to organize a process somewhat similar to Underhill's. So we'll have a determined understanding of what the ARPA fund balance is after this evening, and then we can both solicit projects, and to me, it would make sense that we have again, sort of a codified rubric that people would have to follow, outlining the objectives, what their perceived impact is in terms of
Community.
equitable community.
A la Underhill process, a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one thing for you all to consider as a board, to date, Catherine and I and Linda, and formerly Catherine Sonic, have sort of functioned as the body that's done the early work to survey, identify priorities. But I think this provides an opportunity perhaps to get some public input in forming an ARPA task force or a committee that could stand for that specific purpose, and maybe
Yeah,
have
it's good to know.
representation from one of you. Something to consider.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the other thing to consider is set asides that we might want to have, in terms of what total is going to go out to be,
Right, so a determined
Yeah.
a determined
Because
pot, so to
that's-
speak.
Kind of what Underhill did because they had already spent, allocated all kinds of funding within the Underhill system.
Right.
I
And
think it's worth repeating, though, that we had two substantial surveys.
Yeah.
Then we had the deep work of the ad hoc committee. I mean, they knew what their priority was, as well as the planning commission. They both independently did these deep studies. So I want to be careful that we don't seem like, well, we didn't have a committee. Well, we had people working on it and we had hundreds of people respond to those surveys, not nearly enough, but we did have a couple hundred people. And then we had these two other groups.
I think
So-
300 people or something like this. It's pretty good return.
And
But-
my only concern is at the 11th hour, we don't form a committee. And then there's a couple people with really loud voices. And meanwhile, we've got, all these 2 years worth of surveys and all this sort of stuff. So,
Right.
but having said that, I do think for Steve's comments too, we need to have a bit of a conversation before we move further with how we're going to expend the rest of the funds.
Sure. And I think it would also make sense to have do a deeper evaluation of broader municipal need that could also meet some of the ARPA funding objectives.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much what Underhill did, some of the needs. That's the community thing with the community beach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do think it's worth doing something, and I'm for any option. I'm hesitant to point this out because it seems a little petty on my part, but I'll go ahead with it anyway. This is on the agenda. It was on the agenda since Tuesday. We have all sorts of criticism of how we're spending the money. Here it is, and we don't have any. There's no one on.
Yeah.
There's Sabina, there's SJ. They're involved already. But
They're
we
involved
don't
already.
have-
Yeah.
We don't have public input when we have it on the agenda.
That's
We
a
have
very good
public
point.
input after we make a decision that somebody's not happy with. And,
Yeah.
That's right.
and I get it, you're not interested until it does affect you. So I totally get that. So yes, if another round of, hey, let's get people together, but I don't want any excuses that people didn't hear about it,
Right.
if we have to spend money on TV advertising for the town of Jericho, so people hear about whatever we do, you know what I mean?
I do.
So,
I do.
Maybe like a plane with one of those big flags.
Yeah.
that go on the back.
so
Yeah,
anyway, I didn't mean that to sound petty, but that's.
That's a really good point.
yeah, front porch four is the most economical, and so.
That is pretty economical, yeah.
And maybe the Gazette.
Yeah. Clark sign.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, obviously, I think some of our money's gonna just go right now. Review and consider approval of a painting machine and trailer.
Yes, so
I know the solar signs were ARPA, but is this an ARPA or?
So did we, I'm sorry, there was a quick discussion of the signs. Was there an actual approval?
No, that's coming up because that wasn't on the agenda yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was,
No,
oh,
he was just.
I'm sorry, they're in reverse. My bad. So so Adam, so I think the conversation about owning a painting machine has been in my purview since I arrived. We spend upward of $13,000 to $14,000 every time we have a contractor come in to do work to do the painting and striping in the village, identifying speed zones in the center, basically everything that's not doesn't fall under state purview. So fog lines, center lines, all that comes on a rotational basis using state funding. But I think it's a great example is the current state of the directional painting in Jericho Center.
Mhm.
It's gone. There's really nothing. Crosswalks have eroded from plowing primarily. The speed bump is not identifiable. All the speed control indication that was painted on the pavement is no longer there or readable. So having this would provide that opportunity. and recent conversation around, municipal obligation to keep areas like we've discussed in and around, Old Pump Road, and the entrance to, Old Pump. We've got this sort of small-ish project that would be achievable if we had, this kind of machine. But we're, again, having to rely on a, small community of painting companies that actually do that industrial road painting work, and they're scheduled, some cases years out. So
You had me
Adam,
sold that painting machine.
what's
I
that?
said you had me sold that painting machine.
Now, can
Need I
that,
go on, Eric?
No.
can you, can that also be used like on our multimodal pathways to put, the stops, like a little tiny,
Absolutely.
So
it comes with
or something?
It does. So, in addition, you'll see in the, estimate that was provided by the Franklin Paint Company. Oh, here it is. It includes a whole stencil set that would come with it, and I believe the paint gun and all the optional equipment came in the neighborhood of, it's $8,800, and I think the stencil sets are a couple $100 in addition. The other, oh
And
no,
he
I'm
has the
sorry,
time
I'm
to-
sorry, my bad. Boy, they don't have a final total on this.
Yeah, I
I'm
noticed that.
realizing.
I came up $17,389.
Oh, you did. So you added it up. Thank you,
Because
Catherine.
the
'cause-
first, I added
Oh,
up everything on the Franklin Paint Company, and that came out to $2,839.35.
Okay,
The next item, the trailer was $5,541.95. There was the trailer at $8,800. And then there were two different things at, one was $208, and the other was, that was it, $208.32.
I'm sorry, I think you said trailer twice.
Oh, well.
So
I
the
said
paint,
The trailer's 88.
right,
There is, the Franklin Paint,
Right, the line laser.
the line laser and the optional equipment came to $5,541.95.
right.
And then, I had 2839.35 on the,
Stencils
front
and-
page thing of all the
Stencils and paint.
stencils and paint. And there was something was $208. I forget what that was. I don't know where it was now. Oh, yeah, on the back, crosswalk stencils,
That's the
$208.32.
stencil set.
So it came out to $17,389.62.
I bet you it needs some particular solvents too.
Yeah.
That aren't here for cleanup. Because, the whole thing, the secret's gonna be the cleanup. Got to keep the nozzles, all that
Oh,
stuff
absolutely,
cleaned up.
'cause the nozzles you can just
So-
dry pretty darn quickly.
But that can't be more than a couple $100. So what's the total we should approve then, or vote on to approve?
Not to exceed 17,400.
So I make a motion that we approve funds not to exceed $17,400 for a traffic lining equipment.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are we using ARPA funding for this?
Yeah, that would be the
That's
expectation.
what I thought. it
Sure.
was.
I'm so excited about this. I'm just gonna mention these Plains Road and Skunk Hollow. I like this notion that the Palmer sent,
Yeah,
with the engineer said, you're narrowing and defining the road.
Right.
And I immediately was thinking of these other intersections, Plains and Skunk,
right.
Lee River and Brown, where we were just talking about. And then that horrible curve on Nashville and Brown's Trace. By having obvious fog lines there, and then maybe even one of these temporary speed signs there, all of a
Yep.
sudden we're trying to take a little bit of control over that intersection where people are just ripping it 45 miles an hour around that curve.
Yeah, you can put speed bars and that sort of thing, but just just to be clear, these machines, they're not, while they do have laser guidance, they're not gonna be able to do like mile-long stretches of road. These are for very specific kind of,
Intersections.
intersections and more, particularly municipal applications versus what some of those state contracts provide.
But even on this thing like Brown's Trace in Nashville,
Yeah.
even if the fog lines only went 50 feet,
Oh, yeah.
at least it would
Sure.
introduce you to the intersection and
The
you'd
fact is that should.
pay attention.
That whole
Yeah.
area should be, even though you said that it's hard to get those companies, I mean, that really should be done, on a longer distance.
And I think,
But if anything will help. Cause we're still talking about the signs that they wanted to say, slow down or something.
yeah.
I mean, I bet this would save money in the long run.
Oh, huge. I
Right?
mean,
I mean,
as a
Oh, yeah.
$17,000 investment, I mean, we'll basically recapture our
Yeah.
cost within two season cycles of definition and having a
Wow,
contractor.
that's
come
really
in.
good.
The contract for, by way of example, the contract for the work that's scheduled to be happening here in July, I think Adam said it was 13,500 to do all the redefining of the areas that I described prior to the approval. So we're already going to be well on our way.
so do we not have to do that?
So,
now?
well,
Or will we not get this in time or?
well, that's a good question. So that's scheduled for July. I think it'll be a function of how soon the trailer can be delivered. I'll report back at our next meeting. Adam made
It'd be
it,
nice if we saved that 13,000 right out of the gate.
that would be nice.
That would
And
be
Adam
good.
That
also,
whole stuff at Jericho Center, right?
Adam also made it sound like that delivery, unlike the new truck, we're talking weeks versus months. Like we should be able to gain delivery sometime within the next couple months.
Yes.
Have the whole trailer, painter and all the needed materials
So
together.
then we only need, so that's good. So then the.
Identifying priorities, that's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
And Adam was distinct in saying we do not need a road commission to do that. He's capable of making the priority decisions.
That's probably true.
I gotta talk to him because sounds like there's a story behind that statement.
That's
The other-
I think I know what the story is, but I'll just.
storied experiences with road commissioners.
The cool idea is that,
Yeah, I'll take another 3 bosses. Sure, why not?
here again, some more ARPA funding can review and consider approval of the 3 solar speed signs for Jericho Center.
Great, so this is more clearly delineated. You have the all traffic solutions
Yeah.
page in front of you.
And they even get you a discount.
Yeah. The promotional discount.
Yeah.
So
Very
it
good.
includes the above mentioned signs that Catherine discussed. The solar panels to go with them. The integrated poles and battery kits. No cost for warranty. Shipping and handling, and then the battery charger. In the amount of $375 for 3 of those. For a total of $9,962.70.
And the nice thing is these are fixed and people are used to seeing them, but with the other 4, we can rotate them because, that like. All the different places that people have asked us to put signs, we can just kind of move it around them.
Right.
Sabina has a hand up.
Oh, hey Sabina.
Hey, just a quick question. With the battery backup that you're talking about, does that mean that those will also illuminate in the evening hours? Because I think the ones that I've seen in the past and the old one from in front of Mav's house, that one didn't go on at night, and I was just guessing it was because it didn't have enough charge held over from the solar gain from the day. But do these batteries allow it to work in the dark hours?
You know what? That's a great question,
Sure.
and I don't know that I have an answer unless Catherine's more familiar with them. I'd
I
have
sure would
to,
assume that it would work.
I would,
Really?
I would
assume.
Yeah.
No, you know, cause I drove home at night enough. And they very often were dark at night.
Yeah, they don't work at night. And I'm not sure if
And I
that
don't know
is
what other companies.
a
Huh,
reason
that's
for
not
that.
dumbest thing.
No.
you know,
That maybe
Sabina,
it's
let me ask Adam and clarify. And again, I'm not sure that yeah, I'm really not sure.
okay,
I don't know.
I'm just
We haven't been
curious.
in other towns that have those things, and whether they're operational at night or not.
Right.
Because maybe they only do a certain amount of time because the traffic changes, patterns change, you know, in the evening.
Yeah, that's when the speeders come out and race,
Well,
so. I
Well,
mean,
the other point being,
not that that's gonna slow them down anyways, but I
No,
was just
no,
curious
no.
if it would light up at night.
well, the other point being, if they're reliant completely on solar gain and they're not operational in the evening, they're likely not to, you know, early mornings in the winter when it's, you know, dark during the commuter hours doesn't really help meet that mark either.
They didn't
Right.
work very well, the old ones.
Huh,
They really didn't. I mean, if you had, you know, a couple cloudy days in a row, they were toast.
okay,
Gee, this is underwhelming.
yeah,
But these are all.
These are new.
These are brand new.
They better work.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the other ones really didn't hold, I mean.
Yeah, if they don't
Todd
work
was
at
always-
night, I don't want to approve, because then that's silly. It's just dumb. But it must be a design flaw or the batteries were bad, because
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Todd was always replacing batteries and running out there and charging them and stuff.
That's a-
yeah, and I think I think the batteries were the culprit and,
So can we approve conditionally so that we don't have to add it back? Could we say?
Yeah.
could we-
Upon confirmation, I move that upon confirmation that these work at night,
And cloudy weather.
and cloudy weather, I approve that, contract not to exceed $9,962.70
I second
payable
that.
to offer all traffic solutions.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Wow, now we're up to where we are with Jessica. It's the review and consider approval of the catering permits for the following. 6/11/23 Griffin Riders LLC at the Mansfield Barn, 6/23/23 Griffin Riders LLC at the Mansfield Barn. And thank you, Jessica, for putting in what they were.
Yeah, I let the Department of Liquor and Lottery know too, that a wish list would be if we could print a summary sheet that included all that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because it's nice to know how many people in their timelines, because we do have, you know, they do have zoning times, you know, that they have to pay attention to.
and Jessica, I think,
There's 3 additional.
yeah, there's 3 additional,
They just came today.
permit requests. I think you were, alerted via email, but it was.
No, I just sent it. to
Oh, okay,
you,
great.
because I didn't know if you wanted to put it.
Yeah. I think-
These are new.
Thank
these
you.
are the new ones.
So this is a different caterer, but there's 2
Oh, yeah.
different caterers.
Yes.
Mansfield.
Such a.
He was very kind.
180 is the occupancy at the. Mansfield
Well, it's
Barn.
the first time I've seen that kind of, you know, we haven't seen those really big, that usually it's around 100 or something, it's the standard number we've seen. Oh,
So this might be out of your purview, but the ending times,
11 o'clock is what's approved in the DRB.
okay, so anything less than the 11 o'clock is probably the applicant saying, you know, I only need this till 8 o'clock, or I only need it till 10. It's not that I wanted to 11 and the DRB said, oh, no, you can only have yours to 10, you can only have yours to 8. That's,
They can all.
that's what I thought.
They can all operate between 10 AM and 11.
yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve for June 11th of 23 and June 23rd of 23 for Griffin Riders to cater at the Mansfield Barn LLC.
Second,
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll make a motion for Waterfront Yogurt and Sandwich Company to cater. Wait, where does it say?
The dates are on the right.
I see the dates. Does it actually say the location?
No. It
Sorry.
says it at the bottom of the. I just wrote
Oh, you wrote
Wastewater.
it. Okay. So, sorry, I'll start that motion over. I'll make a motion for Waterfront Yogurt Sandwich Company to cater to Mount Mansfield Barn on July 15th, July 22nd, and July 29th.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
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 Next is, looks like a pretty long list.
So I have,
And what's interesting, I went through them all, and most of them have out-of-date rabies. Either,
Thank you.
but some of them are way out-of-date rabies.
so if they have a 4-digit number in front of them, as opposed to a 2 or 3-digit number, they were not licensed. If it begins with a 21, they haven't been licensed since 2021. If it begins with 22, they haven't been licensed since last year.
Yeah, I went through and there's a couple of them whose rabies expired in, like in 20. Or there was one that actually the rabies expired in 19.
So some dogs get a letter from the vet to exempt them from a rabies certificate or rabies vaccine because of medical condition, but the vet has to do a exemption form every year. So there's one dog, I know there's one dog on this list of it. Where?
Well, you would think,
Yeah, so that one that says the rabies expired in 2019, it was because it had a exemption. So the exemption has to get updated every year by the vet.
so I mean, not only they are late with their license, but they're way late on their exemption. Because the whole point is for, the public, why we're giving them through April 3 is for public safety to make sure they get the dogs are vaccinated, or at least they should say have medical exemptions.
Sabina's got her hand up.
Sabina, do you have a question?
I do. Sorry, the veterinarian in me is
Oh, good for you.
curious. And again, I haven't practiced since I moved up here, but has there ever been any dialogue with the VVMA about having some kind of automatic registry that happens when dogs get vaccinated at the vet? I'm not saying that this is going to be your job as a select board or as the town clerk, but maybe Jessica, if this has been approached before.
I don't know
It seems like this is a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy and chasing people down. And maybe it could be simplified. I'm going to look into that because I'm curious myself, and it seems like it doesn't have to be this difficult.
Yeah, it would be a legislative change to do it that way, I think.
It would.
Yeah, the laws, the statutes sort of show what the municipalities' responsibilities are. And,
All right. Well, I don't want to take up the time of the meeting. I was just curious, but my interest is piqued.
so the legal size paper shows you a 24-year history of dog registration. And the column on the right shows yearly how many dogs were registered. So it looks like our peak was,
2015.
well, we had 960 in
Oh.
2008.
Oh, okay.
Which that year we were at the church. Because the town hall was being renovated. So we actually did a lot of publicity about how do you register your dog? Because you either have to come to the church or code, different drop box. And so we had 960 in 2008, and then 2012 In 2000, so 2015 was the first year of the incentive for timely registration. So yeah, we had 949 then.
And for a while it was kind of relatively consistent, but it's started to fall.
COVID, I think, broke things up a little
Yeah.
bit, and but the technology, the website, I think started in 2019, the Join in Jericho website, which allowed for the updates to go out through that, plus the online dog registration option, which the timely registration incentive works really well. Prior to April 1, in combination with the website. After April 1st, it's difficult, like sometimes people will fill the information out on the website and say that they're going to pay, but then, I'm chasing about 5 people from April that, they're like, oh yeah, I need to do that or whatever. So collecting the fee definitely slows it down. But you can see we're actually 692 registered by April 30th is pretty good, because that's actually more than what we registered last year. Was a very bad year for dog registration, and I think with Ed being less active, there's not any follow-up. So definitely
I noticed it was an awful lot from
and then the ledger size paper, that is sort of a timeline prior to April 1st, like in 2005, and we used to actually mail out reminder letters, and then in 2008 it went towards postcards, and then we started doing email reminders in 2010, and the website took over
Aaron's
in 2019.
Everything okay, Aaron?
Everything's fine. I just have an actual comment about this when you have a minute.
Oh, okay. Not related to the TV. Okay.
The graph at the bottom actually was seeing if there was a correlation between how many times we contacted dog owners and how many times how many dogs actually got registered, but there's more contacts when more dogs are late, so it's not really showing any trend there. And then so I sometimes send a letter out before April 1st, sometimes not. As we've gone into the electronic age, I have opted not. However, this year, 2023, we sent out about 500 reminder letters. We didn't before, we did it at the beginning of the year, and we didn't do it to dogs that were over 12 years old unless they lived with other dogs in the family that were younger, because we just didn't know. And we've had some people that haven't licensed their dog in the last 2 previous years, but it's known that the dog is still there. So I was like, well, maybe mailing a letter will make a difference.
Was it a real letter? You actually did?
A real letter in the mail, yeah.
Wow.
But that did not correlate to, more dogs. Like, it'd be great if all the dogs were done by April 1st.
Right.
Yeah.
And then as you go further across, I always send a letter out in May and June. So I actually just sent 105 letters out yesterday and today.
I didn't count all these. How many are on this list?
105.
105, but it is the 105 number.
And then I'll sort of, we'll get the responses to who's unregistered after the first letter. And then the second letter, can either come from the town clerk or it has come from the select board. It sometimes includes a sample warrant and sometimes does not. And the date, if you go over to the unregistered at the year end, when there's a 0 in that column, generally sample warrant has been included in the select board letter. There's 2 types of warrants that can be issued. One is that the dog would be destroyed in 90 days, which is pretty harsh. And then the second, they came out with a new, this is all through the state statute, the wording of the letter. But there's an option to adopt the dog out if the current owner isn't, getting the rabies vaccine on file.
You mean I have a dog, I didn't give it the rabies vaccine, and so the town would say, we're going to take your dog and have somebody adopt it?
Or like, it's also unlicensed.
Okay, who signed up for that duty?
And
that's-
change your name too, Wayne.
Yeah.
Witness protection program.
Or the second, the letter can just be an informational letter. Please take care of it by this date. But that left us with total unregistered at the year end. So the second column over. There were actually 102
Oh, yeah.
dogs as of September 26th. And I think by the end of the year, that was down to 78, but that was still the largest number of unregistered dogs we've ever. Oh, no, actually, I see 78 in 2020 also. So in the last 5 years, we've had some high numbers of unregistered dogs.
Yeah.
Although the letter that went out in January, some of those people that hadn't done it for 2 years did respond, with a new rabies vaccine, and they got in before the April 1st incentive. So it's not the same people every year that are late.
So what's the question before the select board? Do we want to send one warrant over another warrant, or what's your specific
letter.
ask?
So number 1 is we need an animal control officer, because the warrant would be issued to the animal control officer.
Oh,
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
And there's about 5 dogs that are currently unregistered that have been or 2 in particular that have been problems that actually one of them has halfway registered through the website, but then we're waiting for the payment. And then the other one, I think the contact information is sketchy.
Well, I know where they live. I've engaged with the owner. I didn't know whether or not the dog was registered before I went to address the nuisance parts. So now that I know that, I can either pay another visit or try to locate a phone number. And out of practice, now that I know, I'll never do another dog visit again without looking. And because actually, for the dog that had been impounded, because Jen Silpy knew the dog's name, I think I assumed that it had tags and was registered. But it must have just been a name, had the name tag, but not the registration tag, apparently.
Yeah, and generally when the dog gets impounded, it doesn't get free until it gets registered.
Right.
But, not having
and
person to communicate all that too.
And I can provide a quick update because I circled back to Brad and Jen yesterday. So because I paid a visit based on her having impounded a dog from Jericho, I wanted to email them to report back what next steps would be so that we had a written record. And so, one of the next steps will be approaching the owners about registration as well. So they've basically been this is a dog that's been impounded twice. And the concern that Jen has raised is not only around the dog safety, it lives on one side of Route 15 and has been found on the other side of Route 15 twice. But the potential liability of the owner should the dog again create an automobile accident or something like that where the owner would bear liability. So I met with them in person and I provided them the nuisance dog ordinance and let them know that my visit should be considered a warning, and that if there were another infraction, there could be a fine involved, having nothing to do with the cost of registration. Oh, and the other piece, the enforcement piece, I said in front of this board, and I circled back, Brad has identified a private team that works with dogs and nuisance animals that we would have a contract with. They had already provided the town of Underhill with a contract. He was going to circle back to them to see if they could expand the service area to include Jericho, and the contract would it would be another kind of proportional thing. We'd pay 62, town of Jericho or town of Underhill would pay 38% for services on an annual basis, but we've yet to see the contract, and it's been a few weeks now, so I'm getting itchy.
Yeah,
That's hopeful.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it might be, since this first letter just went out June 1st, give them 3 weeks to respond. So it could be that you could find out what's going on with animal control for Jericho, and then maybe send a follow-up letter at the beginning of July.
Beginning of July.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With a deadline to register by July 31st, because the longer it goes, the harder it is to get people to respond, because it's like, why am I going to register my dog in September? I'll just wait and do it next year, which might be okay too, but
But if the dog,
having it registered
bit somebody, they wouldn't necessarily know.
and just having the rabies on file.
So are there fines attached?
Well, that's the other thing, I think. Per the statute, there's up to a $500 fine that can be added. The problem in doing that is if you change, well, I guess a fine is different than a fee.
Right.
Because it should be a consistent fee year long, because otherwise people will start sending in the wrong amount of
Fine is
money.
very different.
But that might be, after August 31st, that a fine could be imposed. I know Westford, they had some type of ticket thing that I think it had to be collected through judiciary or something. So that might be more complicated than where you want to go. But it
That
was
sounds like a different ordinance than we have that exists right now.
Right, yeah.
You go to some kind of ticketed system that puts some of the responsibility on that.
yeah, I don't know if it's an
That's very
and
intriguing.
or thing, or if the fine is in the statute, so you may be able to use it without
could
having
be.
it in the ordinance.
That could be, since it is in statute. I mean, we do have, I think there is some fines in the statute. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
And does the letter originate from the select board?
So the next letter that goes out,
In July.
I think
July comes from the.
Oh, it does.
should come from the select board. I can print out a little face sheet so that the address shows up in a window envelope,
Oh, gotcha.
and it has, it shows the rabies expiration date on it, and
We do still have Aaron's hand up.
Oh,
Go ahead, Aaron.
hi, Aaron.
Hey, I just wanted to say that for quite a while I've been thinking that it would be fun to do a little MMC TV video with information about why you would register your dog, or just sort of an informational thing that might be useful for you guys to use on your website if you're trying to encourage people to come in. Anyway, just throwing
Great
that.
idea.
Great idea.
That is a great
Great,
idea.
excellent.
So Jessica, call me or email me and we can talk about that.
Awesome.
Thanks.
That would be a
Thanks,
great opportunity to emphasize the health and safety aspects of this rather than the compliance aspect of it, which is not getting us quite as far.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it had for a while, I mean, because the whole, because we actually take, it costs the town money to not, require them to be, not require them to pay anything until after April 1st. All those dogs are, we pay the fees to the state.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna jump in. I agree with Wayne. This is really all about public safety and health, because rabies, as you know, is a fatal zoonotic disease. And so, and I just went back through my notes, and rabies is actually on the rise in Chittenden County this year.
Yep.
So it's very real, and
Sabina, that's why we've been having the dogs register for free if your rabies are up to date.
Yeah,
For
right.
quite a few years.
I hear, I'm on board. I have a hard time understanding why people can't get this thing done. But anyway, it is a really big health concern and not something you want to mess with ever. If you really want to ever see something terrifying, watch a video of somebody with rabies in a third world country. And it's very frightening.
I'll bet.
I won't be watching that.
No.
We thought COVID was bad. Rabies virus is deadly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
faster and more heinous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have an odd question. I looked at all the names and stuff and see who I know.
We all did that.
Make sure your name's not on.
See what friends you can wag a finger at.
The question is, the dog has not been licensed and the
Owner passed away.
and their rabies are out of date and the owner has passed away.
Yeah, I actually didn't send that letter. I am gonna follow up with the family to see if the dogs are still
Well,
gonna
I know
stay
the
in
boy is
Jericho.
younger. I'm not sure the yellow lab, but he was pretty old. He was getting up there in years, but. So,
Well, it appears there's a community of elder dogs that live in Jericho and they're unregistered. There's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of them.
yeah,
But there are some 17 and 18-year-old dogs in Jericho, which
yeah,
20 years ago, you didn't see that. I'm amazed at
yeah, because these dogs haven't been vaccinated since 2020, since 21. So I mean, I know he'd been sick for a while.
So we don't need to take any action today, but it sounds like in July, the select board has to
Yep.
be prepared to issue some letters.
Yep.
That's what you
find an animal control officer. Yeah.
you keep saying that.
Yeah.
No, it really, I've
I'm just
seen
teasing
there's just a breakdown in communication without somebody,
Yeah.
that's in charge of
A
it.
a defined responding party.
Because it's often after hours, that someone
Oh, that's
finds a
true.
dog and
Right.
Yeah.
having someone to call and contact. Because we've gotten calls, left here over the weekend. I've chained the dog up, at my garage. Can you tell me what to do? Or, this is like a repeat dog that.
Let it go, feed it, give it water.
And we'd have to figure out, not to belabor this point, but we'd have to figure out if this company, assuming that they were interested in Jericho, if they do this kind of clerical aspect of it, or are they more involved with, we've got to go get dog A
Yeah,
and take it. That's a different thing.
yeah, my hope is that that'll all be defined in the contract, and I can connect with Brad and Jen on that. Aaron, I have 2 very cute dogs for your commercial.
Excellent.
Yeah, maybe we could have it like the dogs are talking. We could.
Pet parade.
You may be overestimating my talents.
I doubt that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Okay.
Oh, Jessica, before you
Do you
leave,
want to be here for this?
yeah, we
signing?
need you to be a witness for signature of a revolving loan fund application.
Yeah, the clerk's listed on all. the
Yeah,
things.
okay.
I think
I
you
forgot
need-
my
I think
pen
you need-
again.
I think you need to sign too.
There you go. Thank you.
You need to attest.
There you go. I have like 2 or 3 pens in here.
Oh, do you need a pen?
Oh, see,
I got one.
there's actually more than one in here. See, there's SB right there too.
Oh, I didn't see the second
one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
It's tricky because it's a front and back document and
Oh, yeah.
the signature labels are. Some of them appear backward.
Oh, here. The other one. And I know there was one for the chair at one point. It looked like, but maybe not. Oh, yeah, chair of the building body. I think I got them all. Oh, by the way, Victor's still hanging in there. He's 15.
Yeah, one of my dogs is 14. The other thing is, I think the vets are now, it's easier to make an appointment. Like, I think during COVID, that sort of
Oh, that didn't make.
slowed the process a little bit, but
They're still
now.
booked out quite a bit.
That's true. I mean,
You'll get the notice like, oh, so-and-so's due. Okay. All right, we can get you in 5 months.
Oh, all right, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's right. For COVID, it really was that. It really-
There
way,
was,
way out.
and,
Probably because everyone got puppies during COVID. Okay, are we done with this?
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jessica. We
Thank
now
you.
move on to Selectboard updates.
Feel like me to start or select board proper to start?
Why don't we do the town administrator
Okay.
first today?
So I realized that I hadn't, I don't think we had gone on the record about the completion of the amended work to the Silly Hill Road project. I just wanted to briefly remind the select board that the work was conducted by Matt Gillian, who's a contractor and excavator who works out of Fletcher. He's the work was completed, gosh, it was prior to the last select board meeting, so it's been over 3 weeks now, and I think after having been up there and inspected a bunch of times myself and with Tyler, I've heard no negative feedback from residents on Silly Hill Road. Seems like the amount of road width that we had hoped would be achieved was the ditch depth has decreased significantly in the areas that were deepest, and I think it hopefully will bring to an end the chapter of improvement to Silly Hill Road. We did get a number of positive reports from residents who were really happy with, we had as fate would work, we had a really light mud season, but Silly Hill Road was that no problems at all. A couple of neighbors reached out to let us know explicitly that it was so greatly improved and by far the best mud season they've had in a long time.
They did take a drive up after that.
Oh,
work
you
was
did?
done,
Good, Eric.
And agree with your assessment. I thought it looked good. I think it helped a little bit. It would make me feel a little bit safer if I was passing a big truck, all the concerns. I think it helps me, but I think it would have been.
Good. I also wanted to just bring folks' attention to the letter that Paul and Colleen Palmer had submitted. And this is really just by way of kind of tracking ongoing and cooperative efforts between the select board and the town and Palmer Lane Maple around parking concerns. So again, while we are continuing our work to move toward a solution with the road painting and signage that will more clearly indicate travel lanes and where parking is allowed, and inclusion of a crosswalk and a stop bar, and defining the plates at the ends of the sidewalk. They had an engineer from O'Leary and Burke come in and do a parking and traffic assessment, which I think was, again, shows due diligence on their part in trying to both more deeply understand the problem, but identify some of the solutions, most of which align with what we had already discussed.
I do like the slow sign though.
Yeah,
That's a new one. I like
Yep.
that one.
and I think that's kind of low hanging fruit. I think thank you, Justin. Oh yeah, those are for Brian. Thanks. Yeah, I like that too. And so I think we're moving in an understood direction, both on our part and the Palmer's part. There were the conclusion that the engineer made was that current parking and traffic arrangements are reasonable, consistent with similar small Vermont village-based retail operations. I'd be interested to know what other operations the engineer has visited. I think that might give a little bit more definition to that assessment. Existing parking and traffic don't present unusual or unacceptable safety hazards, and he visited on a Friday evening in late April, 6:30 to 8. Again, I'd be interested in having this person come back, or somebody with that level of expertise around parking and traffic flow come back on Saturday or Sunday afternoon in July when it's 90 degrees, and see how
Yeah, I had that same thought.
Yeah.
see how the assessment might be differently informed. Yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. I was glad that Paul came in and made the effort to reach out and get some professional input and engagement.
Yeah, I was impressed with their effort to do this, and I liked short and sober sort of assessment of what's going on over there. A couple things we can do, one thing that they clearly need to do. I was a little concerned when they said it was moderately busy. And it certainly doesn't preclude people feeling concerned about safety issues, perceived safety issues, but all in all, I felt like it didn't put things at rest, but it just clarified where we are, what's realistic expectations to have for the intersection. I think sort of was in between the lines, and I think it was really welcome.
I think one thing that I might suggest to Paul and Colleen is that we quantify what like number of visitors per hour, or, you know, have some distinct, like, what does moderately mean? Hard to tell. Is that, you know, 100 creamies in an
Right.
hour? Is that 400 creamies in an hour? I don't,
Yeah.
that those are hard things to interpret. So I may circle back and try to do a little deeper dig there.
Will this be, this document will not be posted? It's not part of the minutes? If you're a neighbor, would you end up seeing this?
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't have any intention of
okay, just asking.
publicizing.
Thank you.
You know, and if need be down the road, I mean, because it covers some of the things we'd already talked about, which is nice, and confirms that we were on the right track.
Yeah,
And the stop sign is nice, but, you know, whether we can ask them to pay for something in July or whether we pay for it to make sure, you know, we're just doing due diligence.
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I like that they pointed out the fog lines because that was my idea.
Yeah.
So I was-
That's right.
It was
It's
the
always,
first thing they mentioned, on number one.
Yes, that's right.
it's always
Throwing that out
affirming
there.
when your ideas rise to the top of the heap.
It doesn't happen often, so I will always celebrate when that happens.
That's right.
So you want the minutes to say, I told you so?
Great idea.
Donna got that. So a brief update on the 3-acre stormwater permitting procedure. We being Linda and I had a meeting with Andres Terrizzo and the watershed consulting folks yesterday. We were joined by the HOA representatives from Jericho East, Bob Mulcahy, Leanne Banks. Everything has been submitted, so we're on the right path. And you know, one of the things that's identified is that it's you know, potentially going to be an ongoing and expensive endeavor. By the time we actually get to having the permit in hand, given the, like, right now what we have is they've basically done the on the ground assessment. We have a document making some maintenance suggestions that will improve stormwater flows. But we are going to need to, you know, at some point, the HOA is going to have to, and the town working in their support are going to have to bear the cost of building the stormwater catchment and treatment facility that was designed for South Main Street, and that's gonna come at a cost. So some questions around that came up. You know, one is, you know, we have this sort of it seems like for the near term, you know, we talked about being able to split the permit so that there was distinct cost and responsibility that would fall on the HOA and distinct cost and responsibility that would fall on the town. That's seeming to be a little bit more complex because all of the impervious surface that we're responsible for is really roadway.
Right.
And, you know, municipal infrastructure, theirs on the other hand are, you know, their roads. And the other thing for them to figure out is the defined area that the stormwater, the 3-acre defined area is really the area of South Main and Christie Lane, and there's a lot of uphill water that is there's a lot of people uphill that are dispersing stormwater that are going to benefit from the construction of that facility. So there'll be you know, there's going to need to be further study around, you know, origin of stormwater and, you know, attempt to come up with some kind of reasonable funding solution that, you know, appropriately disperses cost. Yeah, so I'll keep you updated on that. Oh, and we also had we got the report back so there's also stormwater implication for the area around the solar array at the former dump near the town garage. So similar thing that falls that falls squarely on us and our relationship with the ONG folks and they're sorry, forgetting their name. Watershed is again working on that for us.
Did I hear you just say that the town may be facing some costs related to the solar field in the near future?
No.
Okay,
No,
just,
so
I thought I was listening and all of a sudden I was like,
No.
wait a minute, did he just say that we have to spend money on the thing that we just finished 2 years ago?
No,
No,
there
you didn't
won't
say
be
that.
any.
Okay.
No, there won't be any cost for that. So Old Red Mill, so I had the benefit of John Ashley, who happens to be a project engineer, working with us on the wastewater feasibility study from Du Bois and King. I think I mentioned this at our last meeting briefly, Wayne. He has taken over project management for the Old Red Mill foundation stabilization project that Galen had formerly been the project manager of. While we were evaluating after we did the 30% report evaluation for the wastewater feasibility study, John was nice enough to go down, take a look at the current river level on the Browns where it intersects with the mill. Good news is that after some seeming like restoppage of the river that led to the pool rising, whatever was doing that after the boulders had been removed last fall has flushed out and disappeared. The level has dropped to, again, the low that they had achieved when they did the original work that the town had invested in, which is great news. And we took some photographs. Next steps are going to be that John is going to take those photos back to the geotechnical engineer that consults for them through their DDK arm. They have another like geotechnical group of partners within their organization that they work with. And they're going to evaluate what they can, looking at the photos. Again, you can, for the first time, you can clearly see the interface between the foundation and the bedrock. The hope is that both by using the photos and potentially some satellite imaging, they may get some sense of what that interface looks like, but they're probably going to have to come and do some ground truthing and actually look at it, inspect, do some sampling. Yeah.
Where is the fellow, Brian?
So at this point, I think in terms of process, Catherine, I think DDK is going to do their work. And I think when they have information to share, or they have a determined date to do a field visit, it would probably make sense for our geotechnical engineer to come and join, try to get the two together and see if they can, in real time develop some consensus.
Yeah.
So again, Brierley has done, they've done no work while they've been on retainer. They have not done any work actively since last spring.
Yeah, I guess
Or I'm sorry, last fall.
yeah, DDK and Du Bois and King, are there for the essentially the wall, but they need to know about the corner of the
Right.
foundation for them as much as anything.
Right.
And then we're responsible for the foundation to get it done so the wall can get done.
Yes. So, yeah, and again, I did put in the request for congressional funding. So if it turns out that we do need to do some anchoring stabilization work that would involve just the bedrock, preview to being able to revisit the foundation work, we may have a funding source for that, but hoping that it turns out that the bedrock is stable and we can move along as planned and re-engage.
That's through Welch's or
That was actually
Fallon?
through Bernie's office. Yeah.
That's good.
It's great.
And I
Excellent.
haven't heard back. And it's very interesting. They kind of pop in and out of your life. And I'm gonna,
That's very exciting.
she's been responsive every time I've gotten to a point where I haven't heard. I get an almost immediate response and update, so I'll reach out again soon. So Wayne, I know you've been updated on the process of getting the assessment from VEIC on the town garage. So that's moving ahead, and I agree with you. I think, 4 months out from heating season again, we need to get some answers and try to get them quickly. Catherine, I appreciated your input about Yankee and estimates that they've provided in the past. That may be one of the companies we reach back to for RFP, depending on how extensive a system is suggested.
When I was thinking about this out loud, and then I called Paula, because I have a couple of things between whenever I was at the last board meeting and now. I haven't done a whole lot other than Winooski Valley Park District. I checked a couple of things out with him and checked on the heating system a couple of times. And if we have a quote coming in on July 12th, and we have a select board meeting on the 20th, and let's assume that we have a couple quotes for that 20th meeting, that means on July 20th, we would perhaps choose a vendor. Then the vendor's got to order this thing, and my concern is we may not have enough time to develop the system that we want to do. We may be stuck with a propane tank. So I'm not saying that's what I want, but I'm
Right,
just
sure,
saying, when we get this 4-month window,
Yep.
how nuanced a heating system are we going to be able to put together in that time? And to send a clear message to our highway crew, we heard you last year, here's the goods, we promised you, we had a year to do this, so
Well, not really.
almost a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of the end of the heating, okay, it was less than a year, but still, we had some heads up for it.
Yep.
So I'm just
Yeah, it's
really
like
concerned
March or
that,
something
we
like that.
may not have enough time for a proper pellet system or a mulch, and we may not be able to do that.
Right, I know. The downside is you're gonna, unfortunately, if you have to be stuck with the fuel oil or the propane, you're gonna be paying through the nose.
Oh, I know.
After 2026.
Yeah.
And all the holes in the building, and Paula, I guess, didn't find out, nobody was jumping up and down saying, gee, we can do that for you.
Yeah.
No, and
So
maybe
that would be
that's
hard
my
to-
father.
Yeah, so, which makes we're wasting even more money as it's just blowing out these membranes that we call walls over there.
Exactly.
It's-
I mean, it's,
I did look very briefly, I mean, all I did was a Google search to see if, these insulated panels can get bolted to the outside, and then I thought, we don't have time for this stuff. We get 4 months to figure out the heating system. If after that, somebody has this brilliant thing where, okay, we establish an envelope around your building, well, I'd be interested in learning about it, but
or
I
how
just,
much it's gonna cost.
right, even that.
Because then you might want to say, well, let's start putting this, let's just patch the biggest holes and then with just, sheet metal. 'cause
Yeah.
that's what the walls are. And then start putting this money away for the new garage because you're gonna need it.
But even so, to your point, we're probably gonna have to find somebody who's gonna at least go up there and fill some of the holes.
Right.
I don't know if his crew's not gonna have time to do
No,
much of that.
we shouldn't
They're
expect,
too busy.
we shouldn't expect that. They're road crew people.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we may
we'll
need to
leave it
hire
there.
somebody who's
Yeah.
gonna throw some tar up and but whatever they
I'll
have to
take-
do.
Yeah.
I'll take a deeper dive with Adam and see if, see if he knows of contractors that have done that kind of work at other garages that he's been privy to, and, because I think those are two separate things.
Yeah.
Right, they are.
One is just trying to, develop and maintain an envelope that's gonna capture heat, and the other is actually getting the new system in. We should be working on both at the same time, I agree.
Because there is money for those pellet systems, but you gotta, as you say, get one in.
Right, yeah, that's the,
And I guess from Paula, but I've heard from Paula as well, is that people are just booked. And it's very hard to get anybody to even want to do it.
Yeah. Well, we finally have a commitment from BEIC to be in there on the 12th. But that's still, 6 weeks down the road.
Yeah.
Trying to think, other garage related report out, and again, this is a suggestion that given. So we've located the design for sort of a renovation, which would be an amended, basically an addition. I think that addition in Adam's estimate creates problems for a couple of reasons. One is that by the point at which would be constructed, given our current schedule for capital planning and replacement of trucks and machinery, it would already be too small. And the footprint incurs on the current salt shed. So there's some space limitations. So I think what I am going to suggest is that we have a meeting with the Scott Group and the representative, John Alden, and maybe you, Wayne, as a representative of the Select Board, and just get everybody in a room together and kind of talk once, in a definitive way, what are our exact and expected space needs? What, if any, possibility is there to wrap the current garage into whatever that looks like it would need to be, and if not, come up with a redesign and a plan B so that we have exactly what we need moving into the future, and can start thinking about reserve fund and potentially funding and bonding that, looking down the road.
I think that's great, and I don't think it's too early to be talking about that stuff, even though it's 7 years from now before we vote on it or whatever the thing is. It's time to make a
Well,
lot
it
of
starts
noise.
falling down, then maybe quicker.
Maybe quicker.
Yeah, wouldn't that be neat?
So yeah, if we had some consultants, and even if maybe we could squeeze out a 10-minute presentation and some select board one night, so it's on, cable, and so we try to
That'd be
get a little
good.
extra publicity out of it.
Great. And then last two quickly, we had our meeting, our twice monthly meeting of the Chittenden County Communication Union District last Wednesday. At that meeting, the board confirmed selection through the process of selection to work with Mission Broadband, both for project management and implementation support. They're based in I think Portland, Maine. And yeah, it's exciting. I think there's cost savings to be exacted. There was assumption that, like some of the other CUDs in the state, that we needed a full-time sort of executive director person. They're going to function both in that project manager director role on sort of an hourly consulting basis versus having to make a full staff hire, which I think is great. And from my estimation, they seem to stand heads above the other organizations that submitted RFPs. They've done tons and tons of fiber projects all over the Northeast and beyond. They have a really highly functional team. It was evident through the interview process that they all have a tremendous amount of regard and trust in one another, and they've accomplished a lot together. That was far less the case for some of the other organizations that we interviewed. So that's exciting. One of my goals, and I realize this, is that there's been Angeliki brought to my attention that at a recent meeting there were questions asked about fiber and fiber installation and ARPA funding and how all that intersects. And I have realized and take responsibility for probably not having done as good a job communicating board activity and where we fit into that and how that's progressing. So I'm going to work with Sabina to get an informational tile up on the website
Yeah, I ran into Angeliki, well, it's on Hero too.
Oh, did she mention that
Yeah,
too?
she mentioned it. We talked about it a bit,
Yeah,
because she said that it was actually the meeting, the legislative update with
that's what it was, right,
Trevor Squirrel
Yeah.
and Edie Renning,
right.
and they had no idea that Jericho was a member. of
Yeah.
the CUD, because they said, well, Underhill's, but here we were the first ones who signed up as a select board after it was initially formed.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
That's right.
And I want to, I wanted to reach out to Trevor and Edie directly.
Sabina?
Just a quick point regarding the fiber. I think I've mentioned this at another meeting sometime in the past, but it seems like it's worth mentioning again. At one of the conferences I attended on behalf of the town, somebody who was talking about the community, the communication union district work, mentioned that anytime you're doing a trench, you should also be thinking about laying the fiber cables. And since the gas company is working on Packard Road at some time in the near future, I'm just wondering if it could be brought up with, I know it's not, they're doing it on their own and it's all their own project, but it just might be worth mentioning to them to say, hey, can you make sure that we don't have to dig this up in another 5 years, that it's fiber ready.
Conduit down and some.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sabina, I can definitely do that.
Cost of the conduit.
Yeah, we were originally told that Vermont Gas had told Linda and I that work was going to start as early as June. And I reached out to the project manager, who has a fantastic name. His name is Spanky Banky.
Wow.
Yeah, you thought Bart and Marge Simpson had great names.
Yeah, right.
How about that? Spanky Banky.
It's like Candy Bar. And
yeah.
she was in a band, I think, in Burlington, Candy Bar.
But yeah, that's a good point. And again, I guess I don't know enough about it. I'm not sure if you actually have to be at the point where you are installing the cable, but just to, if there's a way that they can make it so that secondary work is less, is less
onerous.
difficult. So
Yeah.
it's just like, cable ready, I guess would be the term that I'm thinking of, because it would be a shame to do all that and then have to undo it.
Agreed. Yeah, so Sabina, I'm sorry, I'd forgotten you were still here. I was talking about my need to reach out and collaborate and build this part of the page. So I'll be doing that for sure. And I think there's some other, I think the whole fiber thing is, I think people understand it conceptually, but we might even be able to put up some documentation that really clarifies what the specific objectives are, how it's going to improve function A for people who don't have it, and potentially improve function for people who currently do. What we're talking about in terms of timeline and scope of work as it relates specifically to our town would be helpful.
I feel like I've done some of this before.
Well, I did. I think we
But
have.
did we start this at some point in the past?
Well, we did. We put up documents prior to joining.
Right. Okay. So this would just be updates to that.
So you're right, though, that did provide some background around what what the project in total entails and what our membership as members in the district means. But I think, we could definitely give an update and let them know that we've taken yet another step down the field in hiring this organization to work with project management and installation oversight.
Yep. Okay, just send me the information and I'll make sure it gets up there. And just a heads up, this Sunday is another newsletter Sunday, so anything you wanted to be distributed in that, just send it to me tomorrow.
I will do that. And if you don't already have it, identified for the newsletter, my final piece and updates is the informational session on Skunk Hollow
Right,
that we're doing next Thursday, the 8th.
right. I will put that in there as well. That's on my list. Yep.
Perfect, great. And yeah, so Adam and Tyler and I are gonna be here at 6 next Thursday to just kind of provide a overview of what the repaving work on Skunk Hollow is gonna look like, what the timeline is, how it's gonna affect
That's great.
commuter
That's great.
commuter travel and all of that. And we'll and we've already, Sabina and I have already connected on putting up most of that information on the website. That's it.
But we probably should mention, because Chris mentioned it to me,
Oh,
that people should be looking out for the signage on Kate's truck
oh, yeah,
3 days in advance.
yes.
Because he has
Okay.
to post it 3 days in advance, so you might as well announce it to the world.
Well, that sounds great. So we should go on the record and let people know that David and John Villano are gonna be providing a free cone day for all the citizens of Jericho at a date to be determined, but sometime within the next probably
30 days.
right 30 days from about a week ago. So sometime in the next 3 weeks or so. And we'll do what we can to help them communicate the word to residents.
That's great.
Yeah, Chris said, watch the sign, because they're gonna post it on the sign.
Great.
There we go.
I don't have any updates for this session.
Well-
Pretty light, JCDC meeting.
Oh,
Very,
good.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, we talked and we went through some stuff, but nothing really worth mentioning. So,
that's great.
Great. Well, as you can see, there's a new town hall art project. It's called Celebrate. And it's, people could think of celebrating, whether it's the ordinary holidays or the first flowers of June or just something fun. So that's what this is. It's a very fun
It
summer.
is very fun.
agreed.
Yeah.
Wander around and see more than just this room, I guess. But-
Yeah, there's a couple down there on this back wall because we had so many large print. In fact, there's a, one that's most of the wall over there.
Yeah.
That was really fun stuff that we had to move some back. We thought we could get everybody in here, but there's some on the back wall. That there. And we're trying to get Jericho Energy Task Force and the Underhill Energy Committee are trying to pin Drive Electric down because we have Green Mountain Power committed to a date to do a informational session at Deborah Rawson, talking about new incentives for charging stations, whether the incentives for the new EVs, and as well as have some owners talk about pros and cons of EVs, particularly when you're traveling cross country. And at the same time, we'll have a bunch of EVs outside at Brown River Middle School.
That sounds good.
And it's gonna be, we're tentatively scheduling it either it's 27th or 29th of June. But Drive Electric is the one we need to pin down so far.
Did either of you sign up for any of those farmers market things?
I didn't. I saw the final thing come out from
mean, I
SJD
meant-
yesterday, and
I want to make myself sign up for one of them. I just have,
They're all filled.
yeah, but I could still sit there unless none of us are going to do that.
Oh, I'm gonna be there on sometime in
the task
whatever
force.
July it is. I'm there as everything. You could be the task force, you could be the select board.
yeah,
You're going to be like Don Jamison. It's going to be, which hat are you wearing right now?
That's right.
I would like to do that, and I do see she's got her hand up now.
I didn't want to put you all on blast in the email when I sent out the schedule. But I'll put you on a more public blast, I guess, because you gave me the opportunity. Yes, all of the dates are full, but there is plenty of room for a select board member any day. So as long as you all talk amongst yourselves and make sure that you're not overlapping with each other, there is room
Right.
for you, and I encourage you to come. And
Thank
if you want to send me an email and give me a heads up ahead of time, that's fine. But if not, and you just have a Thursday and it happens to be one of the farmers market days that we're there, then just pop on down. You're always welcome.
Yeah, because we have limited Thursdays to do that because.
Right. Yeah, no,
board meeting-
I'm definitely gonna do one. I've got to do at least one.
6, right?
6:30,
6:30.
yeah. Pretty tough.
Yeah.
So-
Starts at 3. That's the hard part. That end is the hard.
Yeah.
Yes, that is hard. Plus, if you got to get there and you set up the canopy or, if you're helping with it.
Once you're there, you're very happy and you're really glad you did it. I'm sure.
I bet
Just-
you're right. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, but so.
It would be a great time to talk ARPA and to get in touch with some of the folks who maybe would like to provide feedback but can't make these municipal meetings that happen during bedtime.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, I didn't have any heads up other than the Park District. I talked to Sonia at that fabulous planning session that was at the high school a couple weeks ago or a month and a half ago. And then afterwards, I was invited to a meeting and it was just interesting to see how they do financially. Crew severely limited with crews. And also an interesting aspect about the property down by the Chittenden Mansion there, right by you. That sliver of town property. And Sonia said an interesting thing. Sonia is our rep to Winooski Valley Park District. And she said they were approached about the property, but the Park District doesn't manage property that is owned by other people. And evidently, and I didn't know this, evidently the offer that went out was, can you help us manage this property that we're going to keep?
That was me in my former role as chair of the Trails Committee.
And she said, we don't do that. Now, I don't mean to give the impression that I have an opinion about that should have happened or not, but I didn't realize that that was one of the issues that prevented those talks going further, where they possibly would have taken over management of that if they could have also assumed ownership of that strip of property.
Right. Well, I guess
Do we own the property or not? The town owns it?
Town
Well,
owns
we own the easement that
Trail.
runs along the
Riverbank?
that runs along
Yeah.
the river.
And there was the notion to put a trail along there and to pave the parking lot right by, you know where I am. And,
Yeah, right.
and that didn't grow legs in part because the trail hadn't been completed. We didn't want to do the parking lot because there weren't enough people going to the park. It was sort of a catch-22 thing.
Right.
And then at one point someone said, oh, just maybe the Park District will help out. And they said no, evidently. So that's where it sits. The easement still is there. It's still available for the public, as I understand it, but it's just kind of in this dormancy.
Well, it's sort of it's somewhat of an equivalent scenario to the easement on Twin Meadows. I mean, there's never been anything developed there. I think the idea from our being myself at that time in the Trails Committee was that until there was a clearly delineated and funded place that people could park. If we just built the trail and people were, kind of like parking, around
Willy-nilly.
Palmer's or
Yeah.
up at JCAT, right? People would be parking all over, we'd be creating this sort of attractive nuisance to park in strange places along a very busy road. And that would, potentially incur some liability.
Right.
Yeah, and initially it was difficult to deal with the trail because Chuck had his cows there and there was the, interaction, there was concern
Sure.
about how to do the interactions.
And that's also changed. and-
Exactly,
And the
significant.
property's changed ownership. So, I mean, that project, it's been sort of a back burner priority for the JTC in the last year or so, but I think there's still a lot of value and viability. And I don't know if the permit would have sunset, but we did have the permit and the design for the construction of that parking lot.
Yeah, you ought to check on that.
Yeah.
you do have funding that, no, because there was some discussion about funding in the past.
So are you talking about
Yeah.
the parking lot here?
Where,
Let me see here.
I forget that it's, I can share it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so here's Barber Farm, right?
Mhm.
And then you're talking here?
correct.
Right.
See that, so
Where's,
the trail going along here would make me nervous, because that's basically like I guess somebody must have looked at it, but I feel like that's like a straight cliff down right there.
It is,
That's
it's
tough
pretty
going.
steep, and there's
Just for that little bit, just from there to, then I think it would
actually,
get
you know
very
what,
nice.
there's a flat area here, that's not as difficult, yeah, that's not as difficult. I'll tell you where it gets tricky is this transition,
Oh,
because,
right there.
yeah, 'cause there's a bank that comes up there,
Oh, yeah.
and one of the
I
problems.
still
is
can't figure out where the
You
Oh,
can't.
I'm sorry. So,
parking lot is, but
so you're coming down Barber Farm, you take a right, you're heading
Basically-
towards the Five Corners, you're going along,
Access.
and there's this.
oh, they blocked that off. They've got all kinds of cones there now.
Yeah, because
Right.
that's how you get down to these two fields.
Oh.
Yeah, they
And
don't
that's-
want people down here partying and.
Right, but I think
Whatever.
that's where you're talking about paving, is that little,
Correct.
is it like you turn left, and it's like a little landing down
Right,
there. and-
right.
Yeah, it was pretty steep.
It's
Yeah,
below grade, it's
that-
below the red grade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was an amendment to the original design that would extend the entrance up here for vehicle entrance. Because this corner is somewhat blind,
Mhm,
and
Right.
because of how steep this was,
mhm.
the idea was you could kill two birds with one stone by having people enter. Closer to Skunk Hollow.
Yeah.
I'll share it with you at some point. I'm sure the Trails Committee would be excited
I never paid attention to that.
to re-engage.
After the,
And I,
that parking lot, that there was still a field down below there, because you can see people, Yeah.
yeah, and I
Roast
don't,
piece, I believe, is what it used to be called by the family.
I don't think, I'm trying to recollect the estimate for construction of that parking lot. It
About
wasn't-
45,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ca-
It was around
Catherine,
40.
love it.
we were on it.
I was-
Tim was on it
I was
too.
saying
Exactly.
45,000.
Tim had very strong feelings, which I mostly agreed with.
Yes, you did. Because you felt the money should be put where people were.
Where people were, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just an interesting statement by Sonia that I didn't realize, so.
Yeah,
Okay, all
fun to discuss.
right, so we're all set.
Hey, that's terrific. So now we have, we're gonna do the warrants and approve the minutes of 5/18/23.
I read through them, so I'm interested to know if you caught anything.
I gotta find it now. Put all this over here. Basically, the only important thing was, the end.
The end for the,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and I knew you had those.
And, it's line, 214. Eric motioned, and then I second to come out of executive session at 8:43. The motion passed 2-0. There was no action taken. Eric motioned and I second to adjourn the meeting at 8:44. Motion passed 2-0.
I move to approve the minutes of May 18th with those stated amendments. I don't think you can second, so I think
I don't think I
Catherine, you're gonna
can.
have to.
No, you weren't there. So I'll second that, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great.
And with that, I will make a motion to go into executive session because premature disclosure of the information would be detrimental to the parties involved for reasons of contracts, personnel, and legal.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye,
Good night, everybody.
good night.
Thank you all.